Section 9 of Chris and the Wonderful Lamp. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Donald Warren. Chris and the Wonderful Lamp by Albert Stearns. Chapter 9, in which the Dusenberry 9 and the Lincolnville 10 play a remarkable game of baseball. "Go away!" shrieked Bob. Instantly the genie disappeared. "What's the matter with you, Bob?" demanded Chris, determined not to reveal the secret of the lamp if he could prevent it. "Didn't you see it?" quavered his cousin, his teeth chattering. "Didn't I see what?" "Why, that thing over by the window. I couldn't have imagined it." "I don't see anything there," said Chris. "It isn't there now," replied the trembling Bob. But Chris, I believe I had a nightmare." "You better lie down and go to sleep," advised Chris. "I don't feel as if I could sleep any more tonight. It must have been that cake I ate at the sewing circle. But still, that was over 24 hours ago." "Well, shut your eyes. I guess you'll get to sleep without any trouble," said Chris. Just then there came a sharp rap upon the door. "Who is it?" asked Bob. "It's me," was the reply in the shrill voice of Mrs. Storms. "I wish you two boys would remember that my room is right under yourn, and stop cutting up. If you don't, I'll have to wake up your folks, for I ain't a-going to be kept awake all night." "We won't make any more noise, Mrs. Storms," said Bob, as he turned over and closed his eyes, whispering to his cousin, "I hope I shan't have that same dream again." Chris mentally echoed the wish as he slyly removed the lamp from under the pillow and placed it on the table by the bedside. In a few minutes both boys were asleep again. When they awoke it was broad daylight. Bob had slept off the impression made upon him by the genie, and laughed and joked about his supposed nightmare while he dressed. He told the story at the breakfast table, and Mrs. Storms remarked darkly that in her life she had never hearn tell of anybody with a clear conscience having a nightmare. As soon after breakfast as he could escape, Chris went out to the barn with the lamp under his coat and summoned the genie. The erratic spirit appeared in a shape even more terrible than he had chosen on the occasion of his last appearance. This time he looked like a composite lion and unicorn with a slight suggestion of a war horse. Chris had prepared himself for a shot, but he could not help starting nervously as the genie materialized out of thin air. "However," he said sharply, "I'll trouble you to change yourself into Pulsifer Jukes again in as quick time as possible." The command was instantly obeyed. The next moment the genie stood before his master in the semblance of that benevolent-looking old man. "That's always the way," he grumbled. "You never stick to one idea more than an hour at a time. I thought you gave me the privilege of appearing in any shape I pleased." "So I did," replied Chris sternly, "but you abused it, and henceforth I want you to appear as Pulsifer Jukes unless I give you orders to the contrary. Why, you nearly exposed the entire business by the way you acted last night." "I only did my duty," said the genie, sulkily, "and I sincerely wish that young fellow had retained possession of the lamp. I liked his looks." "And you don't like mine? Is that what you mean?" asked Chris. "I didn't say that," returned the genie, "but I don't see for the life of me why you make such a tremendous secret of the fact that you have gained possession of the lamp." "We won't discuss the point now," said Chris. "I want to get you to do something for me. I've been appointed pitcher of the Lincolnville Baseball Club, and there's a game this afternoon. Now I want to win that game for the Lincolnvilles." "Oh, you do?" said the genie with a particular smile. "Yes, I do. Now, between ourselves, I'm no pitcher at all, and I want you to help me out." "You mean that you expect me to give you the ability to win the game?" questioned the genie. "That's it." "Well, I can't do it." What?" stammered Chris in dismay. "I say I can't do it. I'm about as able an all-around genie as you'll find in a day's walk, but I have my limitations, and I can't make you over. If you want to be able to pitch, why go ahead and learn how. Practice, watch other pitchers, attend all the games you can, and in time you may be able to play respectably." "But good gracious!" exclaimed Chris, aghast. "The game comes off this afternoon." "Oh, you can't play in that game," said the genie. "That's out of the question. But I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll take your place." "Did you ever play ball?" asked Chris. Never, but you know me, laughed the genie. Yes, I'll take your place, and no one will ever know the difference. No, you won't, said Chris stubbornly. I'll play myself, and I'll win too. Let us hope so, said the genie, shrugging his shoulders. If you want me, send for me. I don't think I shall make any engagement for this afternoon. You may go, said the boy abruptly, and his slave vanished. Chris was greatly disappointed by the outcome of this interview. He left the barn, filled with misgivings as to the result of the game. How bitterly he had regretted his success in gaining the confidence of the Lincolnville boys. If he failed to make good his promise, he would be the laughing stock of both towns. His nervousness communicated itself to Bob, who could not imagine what had come over his cousin. And that afternoon the two boys appeared upon the ball ground with very long faces. Bob had begun to fear that Chris was going to make a failure of his self-imposed task, and Chris was almost sure of it. The field was located in a pasture just back of Bob's house. As Chris entered it, he was met by Nate Barston, who was captain of the Dusenberry Nine. Nate greeted him with, "Why, hello, Chris. Is that you? What are you doing here?" "I'm in Lincolnville on a visit to my cousin, that little fellow over there." "Bob Green? Oh, I know him. Didn't know he was your cousin. So you're going to be one of the spectators, eh?" "Not exactly," replied Chris, assuming an air of importance. "I'm going to pitch for the Lincolnvilles." "What?" cried Nate in astonishment. Chris repeated the assertion. "How did they happen to put you in?" asked Nate with a stifled laugh. "Because they thought I could fill the bill," returned Chris stiffly. "Well, I hope you will," and Nate ran off, chuckling to tell his men the news. A few minutes later the game was called. The Lincolnvilles were at the bat, the Dusenberries in the field. The Dusenberry pitcher was looked upon by the boys as a phenomenon, as he was master of a very peculiar and difficult curve. On this occasion he began well for his reputation, for two of the Lincolnvilles struck out without touching the ball. "Now then, show us what you can do, Wagstaff," shouted Sam Reed, the captain of the Lincolnville Nine, to Chris, who was third batter, at which several of the Dusenberry boys smiled audibly. As a teaser, the pitcher delivered a ball that was beyond Chris's reach. He struck at it, missed it, and the umpire promptly called, "1 strike." The plainly expressed derision of the Dusenberries added to poor Chris's nervousness, and he allowed a fair ball to pass without striking. "Strike 2," shouted the umpire. Then Chris swiped excitedly at another wild ball, and amid the uproarious laughter of the Dusenberry boys, the umpire's fiat went forth, 3 strikes and out, side out. The crestfallen Lincolnvilles took the field. As Chris entered the pitcher's box, the captain said to him, half angrily, half entreatingly, "Now go ahead and show 'em what you're made of." "I will, I must," muttered Chris. "There's no such word as fail." But in this case there was. When after a great preparatory splurge that was watched sneeringly by the Dusenberry boys, and in silent, breathless expectation by the Lincolnvilles, he delivered the ball, it hit the first Dusenberry batter. "Dead ball," called the umpire. With an ugly look at Chris, the batter trotted down to first, and several very uncomplimentary comments on his playing reached the pitcher's ears, for which were probably intended. Then 2 men in succession took their bases on balls which made 3 bases full. At this point, Phil Burns, who was considered a crack striker, came to bat and knocked the ball down against the barn. That was the longest strike ever made on that field. 3 men on bases were brought home, while Phil made a home run. The game then stood 4 for the Dusenberries to 0 for the Lincolnvilles. During the remainder of the inning, the Dusenberries batted Chris all over the field, to the intense disgust of the Lincolnvilles, who were not allowed to change pitchers, which they would have done could they had gained the consent of their opponents. When they were finally put out by a fly foul captured by the catcher, and 2 field flies caught by Bob and the left fielder, the score stood 13-0. The Dusenberries trotted out into the field with a very jubilant air. The Lincolnvilles were correspondingly depressed. "It was a mighty lucky thing for us," Chris heard the Dusenberries catcher say, "that those fellows took it into their heads to put Wagstaff in as pitcher." "I don't see it," grumbled the boy to whom he spoke. "Why, there's no fun in the game. It's simply a walkover." Before Chris had recovered from this blow, Bob came running up, his chubby face crimson with excitement and mortification. "See here, Chris," he began. "What's the matter with you? The fellows are all going for me because I had you put in. Why, you're ruining everything, for goodness sake. Brace up." "I guess things will go better in the next inning," responded Chris with a sickly smile. "I'm sure they will." At first they did. 8 scores were run in before it came Chris's turn at bat, when he promptly struck out. The man who followed him set a hot grounder into the left field, making a beautiful base hit, after which, by skillful base running, he stole his way around, getting another score for the Lincolnvilles. The next man succeeded in getting to third base, where he was caught by a tricky play between the baseman and the pitcher, and walked down to the bench with an air of angry disgust. The next player was stopped at first, which sent the Lincolnvilles into the field again. "See here, Wagstaff," shouted the captain as Chris advanced toward the pitcher's box. "You can take the right field. We've had enough of your pitching for a while." As Chris walked away in deep humiliation, he heard Bob appointed pitcher. This added to his nervousness, and in his new position he muffed 2 easy flies, and the Dusenberry boys ran in 11 more scores on that inning. Chris's ill luck continued, and at the end of the 6th inning, the Dusenberrys were 18 scores ahead. At this juncture, Chris walked up to Sam Reed and said shortly, "I want a leave of absence for a few minutes." "What for?" asked the captain. It's time for me to take my medicine." "Well, I guess you need it," said Sam pointedly. "Go ahead, but get back in time to take your place as 4th striker. We'll have to go right on." It was time for Chris to take his medicine, but it was not for that purpose that he ran back to the house. "I'll show them," he muttered fiercely as he ascended to his room. "Those Dusenberry fellows will be laughing out of the other side of their mouths before the next inning is over." He unlocked his valise and took out the lamp and rubbed it. Instantly, Pulsifer Jukes stood before him, a broad grin on his face. "I've been expecting you to call me for the last hour," he said. "Really, I don't know when I've laughed so much." "You've seen the game, have you?" asked Chris, trying to assume a careless air. "Yes," giggled the genie. "I had the curiosity to be on hand. Such playing! He he he! Say, did you ever see a game of baseball before? Honest now." "Between you and Bob and the rest of them," returned the boy hotly, "I was so rattled that I couldn't play at all." "That's right, blame me," shrieked the genie. "Why won't you say it was all my fault? See here, what do you want this time? I want you to change yourself into my double and finish the game for me." "Enough said," and the genie rushed from the room. From his window, Chris saw his representative take his place to strike. The 3 men preceding him had all made base hits, and the bases were full. The genie's appearance was greeted by a despairing groan from the Lincolnvilles, and one boy said, "If only we had a batter like Phil Burns, he would bring in those 3 men, but there's no show now." The first ball was an easy one, but the genie missed it by at least a foot, at which a Dusenberry boy called out, "He has holes in his bat," and everyone laughed, though the manifestations of mirth on the part of the Lincolnvilles were by no means as boisterous as those in which the Dusenberrys saw fit to indulge. When the genie failed to hit the second ball, Chris murmured despairingly, "He can build palaces, but he can't play ball for sour apples. I might have known, by jingo." The genie had struck the third pitch ball such a terrific blow that the bat broke in 2. Toward the barn, then over it, went the ball, every boy in the field staring at it in amazement. Phil Burns's strike was nothing compared with it. Down near third, the Lincolnville coacher was shrieking frantically, "Sprint, you snails, sprint! Great Scott, wasn't that a dandy crack?" The attention of the spectators was almost diverted from the 3 men already on bases, who were running for home, by the amazing swiftness of the genie as he scudded down to first. Having arrived there, he stopped and stared about him, an expression of perplexity upon his face, as if looking for the ball. In his excitement at this singular conduct on the part of his representative, Chris entirely forgot himself and yelled, "What's the matter with you? Run!" But luckily the tumult in the diamond was so great that no one heard him. "What on earth ails you, Wagstaff?" shouted the captain. "Have you gone to sleep there?" By this time the boy who had been on first when the strike was made reached third and started for the home plate, the other 2 having already scored. The genie now apparently roused himself and resumed his run at the same rate of speed that had so astonished the boys when he was on his way to first. He crossed second base like an express train, whizzed down the third like a flash, and in another second, after nearly running over the man ahead of him, landed on the home plate, having first turned a complete double somersault. He did not appear to be in the least out of breath as he cried, "Score, Wagstaff!" A scene of frenzied enthusiasm in the ranks of the Lincolnvilles followed. The Dusenberrys seemed paralyzed with astonishment and dismay. Bob rushed up to the genie and shook his hand violently, saying, "You mustn't mind what I said a while ago, Chris. I was excited. Why, I never saw anything like that run in my life." "Oh, that was nothing," replied the genie carelessly. "You'll see queerer things than that if you stay right here and keep your eye on me. As for what you said, I don't remember anything about it, and it wouldn't make any difference to me if I did." "It's awfully good of you to say that," murmured Bob, gratefully. A new ball was now put into play, a small boy having been dispatched in search of the other one. The genie's feat seemed to have put new life into the Lincolnvilles. Every man played, as Bob put it, for all he was worth. At the end of the first half of the seventh inning, the home club had scored 4 more runs, the genie having made another astonishing home run. The Lincolnvilles now felt they had a reasonable chance of success. The Dusenberrys agreed with them and were evidently losing heart. "You're a queer fellow, Chris Wagstaff," said Sam Reed to the genie. "Why didn't you show what you could do before?" "That's all right," responded the playful spirit with a knowing wink. "There's more to this business than you have any idea of, my friend. Do you want to put me back in as pitcher?" This was exactly what the captain had intended to do, and he replied, "I suppose I may as well." "You couldn't do better," the smiling genie replied, and he took his place in the pitcher's box. As Phil Barnes came to bat, the captain of the Dusenberrys said to him, "Now go ahead and show 'em what's in you, old man." And Phil replied with a confident smile, "Don't worry, I'll knock Chris Wagstaff all over the field." As the first ball left the genie's hand, it looked very wild, observing which Phil decided it must pass at least 3 feet beyond the plate. So he stood with his bat over his shoulder, expecting the umpire to call a ball. But to his amazement, the ball gave a sudden twist through the air and passed over the plate. "Strike 1," called the umpire. How did Chris ever get onto that? Well, no matter. I'll knock the cover off it next time. The next ball seemed an easy one, being apparently just where Phil wanted it, and he struck at it with tremendous energy, expecting to put it down against the barn at least, but it seemed to dodge around the end of his bat and curve into the catcher's hands. "Strike 2," announced the umpire, while Phil dropped his bat in amazement. A murmur of applause rose from the Lincolnvilles, but was quickly suppressed by a gesture from the captain. His face rather pale, Phil picked up the bat, but he could not regain his confidence. The next ball started as well as its predecessor had done, but as the batter struck at it, it seemed to jump at least 2 feet in the air and was missed by Phil, though easily captured by the catcher. "Strike 3, striker out," promptly shouted the umpire. As Phil walked away, his face expressing all the mortification he felt, Bob Green shouted to the captain, who was playing first, "Didn't I tell you Chris could do it? Are you sorry you took him now?" The rest of the Lincolnville club were quite as delighted as was Bob. If to suppose Chris kept on as he had begun, their triumph seemed assured. Phil's successor at the bat, who was at best an inferior player, was so completely demoralized by what he had just witnessed that he allowed 2 good balls to pass without offering at them, and then lunged furiously at one which he could not by any possibility have touched. As he heard the familiar plunk of the ball as it struck the catcher's gloved hands, and the shrill voice of the umpire pronouncing him out, he dashed the bat to the ground and made room for the next striker, who, though considered a good batsman, also failed to touch the ball. As the genie sauntered toward the home plate, a complacent smile on his face, little Bob turned a handspring and screamed, "A whitewash! We're all right, boys!" The Dusenberrys entered the field this time with very long faces, while the Lincolnvilles came up to the bench in a sprightly manner that was in marked contrast to their demeanor of a short time before. The 8th inning was, from start to finish, a triumph for the home club, which succeeded in obtaining 11 runs, the genie maintaining his, or rather Chris's, reputation, making 2 more home runs, easy ones this time. The Dusenberrys finally succeeded in getting the Lincolnvilles out, But the genie's pitching was as wonderful as at first, for he struck out 3 men in rapid succession, placing another whitewash on the visitors. The Lincolnvilles were now 7 ahead. From his station at the window, Chris saw the Lincolnville boys crowding around the genie, and it must be confessed that he felt a little envious. "He played mighty well, there's no mistake about that," he muttered. "But why couldn't I have done it? I can another time. I don't like the idea of taking credit for what I haven't done either. I believe I'll go down and finish the game. The Dusenberrys can't possibly win now." As the Lincolnvilles gathered near the bench, Chris seized a lamp and rubbed it. Instantly the genie stood before his master. "What do you want?" he asked excitedly, wiping the perspiration from his brow. "I can't stop to fool with you now. Out with it." "I shan't need you any more this afternoon," said Chris. "I'm going down to play the last inning myself." "You're what?" shrieked the genie, turning almost purple. "Are you crazy?" "Why, see here. I got things fixed now so that the Lincolnvilles are sure to win the game, but you'll—" "That'll do. Disappear," interrupted Chris. The next moment he was alone. "Where have you been?" asked the captain of the Lincolnvilles, as Chris hurried down to the diamond, comprehending that the game had been going on during his interview with the genie. "Been to take another dose of medicine? We want you on hand all the time. You're our mascot. Why, since you've been gone, 2 men have been put out." "Well, I'm all ready for business now," replied Chris. "When do I come to bat?" "Oh, it won't be your turn for some time yet," answered Sam. As it happened, Chris's turn did not come at all, for the third striker struck out as promptly as had his predecessors. Having whitewashed their opponents, the Dusenberrys came in from the field feeling that if Chris's pitching did not prove too much for them, they still had a slight chance of winning. The mascot went into the box with a good deal of confidence in his ability to do some extraordinary playing, but this feeling was soon dispelled, for the first man at bat knocked a long fly that passed over the center fielder's head, and he reached third before the ball was restored to the diamond. At this, the Lincolnvilles looked rather startled, but Bob confidently asserted, "That's all right, it was nothing but an accident. Watch him paralyze the next man." But Chris performed no such feat. He had become so nervous that he pitched 4 balls in succession, giving the next man his base. At this the Dusenberrys brightened up still more, and the next man sent an elusive grounder skipping past the shortstop, and amid great excitement 2 men scored, which brought the Lincolnville lead down to 5. Although the next striker successfully pounded the ball, it proved an easy fly and was gathered in by an outfielder. But in spite of this slight encouragement to the Lincolnvilles, Chris continued to pitch badly, and the Dusenberrys filled the bases. The excitement was now at a white heat. At this critical point, it was Phil Burns's turn to strike. "Now then," implored Nat Marston, "bring in those men. You can do it if you only think so. The barn is in the same place it was before." Chris set his teeth, muttering, "He shan't send it down to the barn this time." Nor did he, but he hit the very first ball and sent it soaring to the furthest limit of the left field, which had been left open. The coacher literally howled himself hoarse as the runners tore around the bases and came to the plate in rapid succession, Phil closing with a home run. The Dusenberrys, enhanced of capturing the honors, now seemed very bright, for they had only 1 man out, and it was necessary for them to make but 1 score to tie and 2 to beat. "We got 'em now, boys," shrieked the Dusenberry captain. "We'll take 'em into camp sure as fate." The Lincolnville boys were filled with consternation, and Sam Reed asked the umpire to call time, which favor was granted. Then he walked up close to Chris and said in a low tone and in an almost threatening manner, "See here, Wagstaff, you're throwing this game. If we lose, we shall know whom to blame." Then, without stopping to listen to Chris's indignant expostulation, he returned to his place and signaled to the umpire that he was ready to continue the game. Poor Chris's brain was in a whirl, and he so far forgot himself as to toss in a ball. This, however, proved the best thing that could have happened, for it was quite unexpected, and the batsman made a small foul, which was secured by the catcher. "2 men out," murmured Chris. "If I can only catch the next fellow, I'll save the game after all." But the next fellow got first on balls, reached second on a pass, stole third, and came home on a liner, muffed by Chris. This muff and a wild throw to first allowed the striker to get down to second. The score was now tie. If the man on second could reach home, the Dusenberries would be victorious. Both clubs were now literally breathless with suspense. As the Dusenberries were playing on a broken leg, the coacher instructed the runner to take every chance, who, following this advice, succeeded in sneaking to third. The batter brought him home, and the Leakenvilles were beaten. Chris was so sick at heart that he scarcely knew how he pitched the next ball, and he knew still less how it happened that he caught the hot liner that came singing from the bat. Thus ended, in favor of the Dusenberries, the most remarkable game ever played on that field, or perhaps on any other. End of section 9.